The Friday night crowd at Bella Notte filled every table. Conversations in Italian and English blended together, punctuated by the clink of wine glasses and the scrape of silverware against ceramic plates. Sophia Mitchell moved between tables with practiced efficiency, balancing 3 plates along her left arm while her right hand grabbed a fourth. 28 years old, and she had been doing this for 3 years now. She knew every creak in the floorboards, every temperamental hinge on the kitchen door, every regular customer by name and preference. She delivered the pasta dishes to table 4 without looking down. Muscle memory. Her mind was already calculating the next move. Table 7 needed water refilled. The couple at table 9 would want dessert menus soon. The kitchen was running behind on the osso buco for table 12. But first, table 7. Alessandro Vitale sat in his usual spot, the corner table with a view of both the entrance and the kitchen. He had been coming every Friday at 8 o'clock for 2 years. Not once late, not once early. Always alone. Always the same order. Sophia approached with a water pitcher in one hand and a basket of bread in the other. She set both down without making eye contact. "Good evening, Mr. Vitale. The osso buco tonight, as usual?" "Yes." His voice was quiet, controlled. Most people who came to Bella Notte either ignored him completely, pretending they didn't recognize one of the most powerful men in Manhattan's underworld, or they stared too long, whispering to their companions the moment he looked away. Sophia did neither. She treated him exactly like every other customer. Professional, efficient, distant. Red wine, the Barolo. Of course, still water, no ice. Correct. She wrote nothing down. She never did for him. 2 years of Fridays meant she had his routine memorized down to the minute. He would finish the bread before the wine arrived. He would eat slowly, methodically. He would leave cash, always exactly 30% more than the bill. He would be gone by 9:15. Sophia headed toward the bar to place his wine order when Tommy Greco's voice cut through the ambient noise. "Sophia." A word. She changed direction toward the small office near the kitchen, where Tommy stood with his arms crossed. He had been managing Bella Notte for exactly 3 weeks. His uncle, the original owner, had fallen ill and handed over daily operations to his sister's son. Tommy was 26, fresh from business school, full of ideas about efficiency and profit margins. The staff had learned quickly that he cared more about spreadsheets than people. "Table 6, Tommy said without preamble. "They've been sitting for 90 minutes. They need to order dessert or leave." Sophia glanced through the office door toward table 6. An elderly couple, both well into their 70s. The man wore a suit that had gone out of style 20 years ago. The woman had her hand over his, speaking softly. "Mr. and Mrs. Castellano," Sophia said. "They've been coming here since before I started. They always take their time. That's not how we're running things anymore. Table 6 is prime real estate. We have people waiting. Tell them to order dessert or pay their bill. They're not bothering anyone. We have open tables. That's not the point. The point is maximizing revenue per table per hour. This is basic restaurant economics." Sophia felt her jaw tighten. She had worked in enough restaurants to know that some things mattered more than economics. Loyalty, history, the fact that Mrs. Castellano had lost her son last year, and coming to Bella Notte every Friday was the one routine that kept her moving forward. "I'll check on them," Sophia said carefully, "but I'm not rushing them out. You'll do what I tell you to do. You're a server, not management. I'm aware of my position. Then act like it. Go tell them to order dessert or settle up." Sophia walked out of the office without responding. She approached table 6 with a smile that felt brittle on her face. "Mr. Castellano. Mrs. Castellano. How is everything this evening?" The old man looked up with kind eyes. "Wonderful, as always. Your recommendation on the veal was perfect. I'm so glad. Can I interest you in our dessert menu tonight? The tiramisu is exceptional." Mrs. Castellano shook her head gently. "Oh, we couldn't possibly. We're quite full. But thank you, dear." Sophia nodded. "Take your time. There's no rush." She walked back toward the office where Tommy stood watching. His expression darkened when he saw she wasn't ushering the elderly couple out. What part of my instructions did you not understand? They'll leave when they're ready. They always do. There's no reason to. There's every reason. We're running a business, not a charity for old people who want to reminisce. Several nearby tables went quiet. Sophia felt heat crawl up her neck. This was not the place for this conversation. Can we discuss this after service? She asked, keeping her voice low. No. We're discussing it now. Either you do your job the way I'm telling you, or you don't work here anymore. Sophia opened her mouth to respond, but Tommy was already moving past her into the dining room. She followed, her stomach dropping as she realized what he was about to do. Tommy stopped at table 6. His voice carried across the restaurant. Excuse me, folks. I'm going to need you to either order dessert or settle your bill. We have customers waiting. Mr. Castellano blinked in confusion. I'm sorry? Your table. You've been here over 90 minutes. Order dessert or pay and leave, Mrs. Castellano's face went pale. The humiliation was immediate and visible. Other diners turned to stare. The warm atmosphere that Sophia worked so hard to maintain every shift shattered like dropped glass. We'll leave, Mr. Castellano said quietly, reaching for his wallet with shaking hands. Sophia stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Castellano, please. There's no rush. You're welcome to stay as long as you'd like. Tommy rounded on her. Did you just contradict me in front of customers? You're trying to undermine my authority. In my restaurant. Your uncle's restaurant. Sophia corrected before she could stop herself. The words hung in the air. Tommy's face flushed red. The entire dining room had gone silent now. Even the kitchen noise seemed muted. Sophia could feel every eye in the place watching. You're fired, Tommy said. The words came out sharp and final. Get your things and get out. Sophia stood frozen. 3 years of work. 3 years of building relationships with customers, learning the rhythms of the kitchen, making this place feel like the closest thing she had to family. Gone in 5 words. Tommy, let's talk about this privately. There's nothing to talk about. You refused a direct order. You contradicted me in front of customers. You're done. Leave. Now. The humiliation was complete. Sophia felt her face burning as she became aware of all the stares. She recognized most of the faces in the room. People she had served countless times. People who knew her name, asked about her life, left generous tips. And Alessandro Vitale, still sitting at table 7, watching everything unfold with dark, unreadable eyes. Sophia turned toward the back to collect her belongings when she heard the scrape of a chair. Heavy, deliberate, then footsteps. Slow and measured. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Alessandro Vitale stood now, his napkin placed carefully on the table. He wasn't tall, but he commanded space in a way that made the room feel smaller. He wore black pants and a dark gray shirt, with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms marked with ink that disappeared under the fabric. His watch caught the light. His expression remained perfectly neutral. He walked toward Tommy. Not rushed, not aggressive, but something about the way he moved made every person in the restaurant lean back slightly, giving him space. Tommy noticed him approaching. His confident anger faltered. He recognized Alessandro. Everyone in this neighborhood knew Alessandro Vitale by sight, even if they pretended they didn't. Alessandro stopped 3 feet away from Tommy. He slipped one hand into his pocket. The gesture looked casual. It wasn't. How much does this place cost? Alessandro asked. His voice was quiet enough that only those nearby could hear clearly. Tommy laughed nervously. I'm sorry? The restaurant. How much to buy it? It's not for sale. Everything is for sale. Alessandro pulled out his phone with his free hand. He didn't look at Tommy while he typed. What's your price? I don't have a price. My uncle owns this place and he's not selling. Alessandro looked up from his phone. His eyes were dark brown, almost black in the low light. They held Tommy's gaze without blinking. Call your uncle. Tell him I'm making an offer. I'm not calling my uncle at 9 o'clock on a Friday because some customer... I'm not asking. Alessandro's tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. The weight behind those 3 words was enough. Tommy swallowed hard. He looked around as if hoping someone would intervene. No one moved. He pulled out his own phone with trembling fingers. Sofia stood near the kitchen door, watching this unfold like it was happening to someone else. This couldn't be real. Alessandro Vitale wasn't actually trying to buy Bellanota because she got fired. That was insane. Her thoughts scattered when the front door opened, and two men in expensive suits walked in. They weren't customers. They moved too purposefully, scanning the room with professional assessment before their eyes landed on Alessandro. One of them carried a leather briefcase. Tommy was still on the phone, speaking in rapid Italian to his uncle. His face had gone from red to pale. He kept glancing at Alessandro with obvious fear. Alessandro gestured toward one of the empty tables. The two men in suits sat down and opened the briefcase. Papers. Lots of papers. 15 minutes passed like 15 hours. Sofia couldn't move, couldn't process what she was seeing. The other diners sat in stunned silence. Even the kitchen staff had emerged to watch through the service window. Tommy's uncle arrived in a taxi, still in his bathrobe and slippers. He was 74 years old and sick with something nobody talked about openly. He shuffled in with the help of a cane and looked at Alessandro with tired resignation. They spoke in Italian. Quick, efficient sentences. The old man kept nodding. At one point, he glanced toward Sofia with something like apology in his eyes. Then he looked at his nephew with unmistakable disgust. Papers were signed. Money was discussed in terms Sofia couldn't quite hear, but involved numbers that made her head spin. Alessandro produced a check from one of his men. Just like that. Done. Alessandro Vitale now owned controlling interest in Bellanota. He turned to Tommy, who stood frozen near the bar. "Get your things," Alessandro said quietly. "You don't work here anymore." Tommy opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. He looked at his uncle, who had already turned away, signing the last of the paperwork with shaking hands. Now, Alessandro's voice remained soft. That made it worse somehow. Tommy grabbed his jacket from the office and walked out without another word. The door closed behind him. The sound echoed in the silent restaurant. Alessandro looked around the dining room. Everyone who had their meal interrupted tonight. "It's on the house. Stay as long as you'd like. Order whatever you'd like." He said it in English first, then repeated it in Italian. The tension broke. Conversation resumed, though quieter than before. Mr. and Mrs. Castellano still sat at table 6, holding hands and looking shell-shocked. Alessandro walked toward Sofia. She had pressed herself against the wall near the kitchen, trying to become invisible. It didn't work. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something woodsy and expensive. "You have your job back," he said. "If you want it." Sofia stared at him. Her mind was completely blank. He waited for a response. When she didn't give one, he nodded once as if her silence communicated something clear. Then he walked back to table 7, sat down, and picked up his fork. His ossobuco had gone cold during the chaos. He ate it anyway. Sofia remained frozen against the wall. Around her, Bellanota slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Orders were placed. Food was delivered. The world kept turning, but everything had changed, and Sofia had no idea what she was supposed to do about it. Sofia didn't go back on Saturday. She stayed in her small apartment in Queens, staring at her phone while it buzzed with calls from the restaurant. Unknown numbers. She knew who was calling. The new owner. Or his people. She let every call go to voicemail. Her hands shook when she finally listened to the messages. A man with a gruff voice said, "Mr." Vitale wanted to discuss her employment status. Another message, a woman this time, said the position was still available, and could she please return the call. The third message was just silence. Then a click. Sofia deleted them all. She spent the weekend applying to every restaurant within a reasonable commute. Her resume was solid. 3 years at Bellanota, 5 years before that at various establishments across the city. Good references from former managers. She knew how to work a busy floor, how to read customers, how to maximize tips without being pushy. Someone would hire her. Someone always did. By Monday morning, she had 3 interviews lined up. One in Midtown, one in the Bronx, one in Brooklyn. None of them paid as well as Bellinot. None of them had the same atmosphere, the same sense of community. But that didn't matter anymore. She couldn't go back. Not after what happened. Not after Alessandro Vitale bought an entire restaurant because she got fired. The thought made her nauseated. She knew who he was. Everyone in Manhattan who paid any attention knew who Alessandro Vitale was. She had spent 2 years serving him every Friday, keeping her distance, maintaining professional walls specifically because she understood the danger of getting too close to men like him. Men who solved problems with money and violence. Men who left destruction in their wake even when they thought they were helping. And now he had pulled her directly into his orbit. She was a problem he had solved. A situation he had handled. She hated it. Hated the feeling of being owned, even tangentially. Hated that she owed him something now, whether he demanded payment or not. Saturday bled into Sunday. Sunday into Monday. Sophia went to her first interview at a steakhouse in Midtown. The manager looked her up and down, asked why she left her last position. She lied smoothly, said she was looking for new challenges. He hired her on the spot, but the pay was 15% less than what she made at Bellinote, and the hours were terrible. Lunch shifts 6 days a week. She'd have to work twice as hard for less money. She took it anyway. She needed something. Anything. Alessandro showed up at Bellinote on Saturday morning. The place was closed for weekend brunch service, which Tommy had canceled weeks ago to save on staffing costs. Alessandro had called a meeting with his lawyers to finalize the paperwork. Transfer of ownership. Reorganization of management structure. Rehiring of staff that Tommy had let go. He sat in the empty dining room while 3 lawyers in expensive suits spread documents across table 7, his usual table. He signed where they told him to sign, approved budgets, made decisions about vendors and suppliers. But his mind kept drifting to the fact that Sophia Mitchell hadn't returned a single call. He shouldn't care. She was an employee, one of many. Her choice to come back or stay away should have been irrelevant to him, but it wasn't. It hadn't been irrelevant for a long time, though he had convinced himself otherwise every Friday for 2 years. When the lawyers finally packed up their briefcases and left, Alessandro sat alone in the quiet restaurant. Dust particles floated through the sunlight streaming in from the large windows. The place smelled like garlic and tomato sauce and history. His mother's restaurant had smelled the same way before Cosa Nostra Siciliana. The Sicilian Mafia took everything from them. Before she worked herself into an early grave trying to keep him fed and safe, he pulled out his phone and called Sophia again. It went straight to voicemail. He didn't leave a message this time. 3 days later, Alessandro was driving through the Bronx when he saw her. Pure chance. Or maybe not chance. He had been tracking her movements peripherally, making sure she got home safely each night, even though she didn't know it. Old habits. When you spent your life surrounded by enemies, you learned to keep track of the people you cared about. He slowed the car. She was walking out of a restaurant called Dominic's, shoulders slumped, face tired. An interview, judging by the way she checked her phone and frowned before putting it back in her purse. Alessandro pulled to the curb. He lowered the passenger window. Sophia. She jumped, startled. Then she saw who it was, and her expression closed down immediately. Walls up, defensive posture. She had been doing that around him for 2 years, and he had never pushed. Never asked why. Now he wanted answers. Mr. Vitale. Get in. I'll give you a ride. No, thank you. I'm fine. It's starting to rain. It wasn't, but clouds were gathering overhead. Close enough. I said I'm fine. Alessandro put the car in park and got out. He stood on the sidewalk facing her. She took a step back instinctively. That small movement bothered him more than it should have. Why didn't you come back? He asked. I don't work for you. You did. You do. The position is still yours if you want it. Sophia laughed. It came out bitter and sharp. You can't just buy a restaurant because someone gets fired. That's insane. I can do whatever I want. That's exactly the problem. They stared at each other. A taxi honked as it passed. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked. The city moved around them while they stood locked in this strange confrontation. I know who you are, Sophia said finally. I've always known. That's why I kept my distance. Alessandro nodded slowly. I know you know. Then you understand why I can't go back. I don't want to be part of your world. I don't want to owe you anything. I don't want to be another problem you solved with money and power. Is that what you think this was? What else would it be? Alessandro considered his answer carefully. He could lie. Pretend it was just business. Pretend he bought the restaurant on impulse for reasons that had nothing to do with her. But he was tired of pretending. You were the only person in that building who treated me like a human being, he said. Not a monster, not a god. Just a man who wanted to eat his dinner in peace. For 2 years, every Friday, you gave me that. So when I saw you humiliated in front of everyone for doing the right thing, I handled it. Sophia's expression flickered. Something between understanding and fear. I don't need you to handle things for me. I know. That's one of the reasons I did it. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense to you. It makes sense to me. Alessandro stepped closer. Not threatening. Just closing the distance slightly. Come back to work, Sophia. Same pay. Same shifts. Same job. The only difference is Tommy is gone, and you won't be harassed for doing things right. And what happens when you get bored of owning a restaurant? When you decide it's not worth your time anymore? I'm not going to get bored. How do you know? Because my mother owned a restaurant. It's the last connection I have to her. I'm not walking away from it. That stopped Sophia cold. She looked at him differently now, seeing something she hadn't noticed before. I'm sorry about your mother. So am I. The rain started. Light at first, then heavier. Sophia didn't move. Neither did Alessandro. They stood there getting wet, staring at each other while the city rushed by around them. This is still work, Sophia said finally. Nothing else. You're the owner. I'm the employee. That's the only relationship we have. Agreed. I mean it. No special treatment. No, whatever this is. Whatever this is. Sophia gestured vaguely between them. This, the attention, the buying restaurants, the showing up where I'm interviewing. It stops. Alessandro smiled slightly. I didn't show up where you were interviewing. I was driving through the Bronx on business. You just happened to walk out at the same time. You expect me to believe that? Believe whatever you want. The offer stands. Come back to work or don't. Your choice. He got back in his car. He didn't wait for her answer. He pulled away from the curb and merged into traffic, watching her in the rearview mirror until she disappeared from view. Sophia stood on the sidewalk for a long time after he left. The rain soaked through her jacket and her interview clothes. She needed to get home, needed to change, needed to think about whether she was actually going to take the job at the steakhouse in Midtown, with terrible hours and worse pay. But she already knew the answer. She had known it the moment Alessandro mentioned his mother, the moment she saw past the dangerous exterior to something raw and human underneath. 2 weeks passed. Sophia took the job at the steakhouse. She showed up every day at 10 in the morning and worked until 4, serving businessmen who barely looked at her and tipped poorly. The manager was handsy. The other servers were competitive and cold. Nobody cared about the customers the way the staff at Bellinota had. It was just transactions. Money in, food out, repeat. Her rent was due in 5 days. She counted her tips each night and came up short. Again. The steakhouse didn't bring in nearly enough to cover her expenses. She needed her old salary. She needed Bellinota. She needed to swallow her pride. On Thursday evening, Sophia took the subway back to Manhattan. She stood outside Bellinota for 10 minutes before finally walking in. The dinner rush was in full swing. The new staff looked overwhelmed. Alessandro had clearly rehired most of the people Tommy fired, but they were still finding their rhythm again. Alessandro sat at table 7. Of course he did. His eyes found her the moment she walked through the door. He didn't look surprised. He looked vindicated, like he had been waiting for her to come to this exact decision. Sophia walked over to his table. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. I'm here, she said. If the offer is still good. Alessandro set down his fork. It's still good. Same terms, just work. Nothing else. Agreed. And if I ever feel uncomfortable, I can leave. You can leave anytime you want. I'm not keeping you prisoner. Sophia nodded. She felt like she was signing a contract, written in invisible ink. terms and conditions she couldn't quite read, but knew would define everything going forward. When do I start? Tomorrow, Friday. Your usual shift. Okay. She turned to leave. His voice stopped her. Sophia. She looked back. Tommy tried to sue. He claimed I forced his uncle to sell under duress. My lawyers had a conversation with him. He dropped it. A conversation. Yes. No one got hurt. He just realized litigation wouldn't end well for him. Sophia wondered what that conversation had entailed, then decided she didn't want to know. Thank you for telling me. You should know what you're walking into. This world. My world. It doesn't play by the same rules you're used to. I know. Do you? She met his eyes. Dark and intense and completely focused on her. I've known for 2 years, Mr. Vitale. That's why I kept my distance. But apparently, distance isn't an option anymore. No, Alessandro said quietly. It's not. Sophia left before she could second-guess herself. She walked out into the Manhattan evening, into the noise and the lights and the endless movement of the city. Tomorrow she would put on her uniform and go back to work at Bella Notte. Tomorrow she would serve tables and smile at customers and pretend that everything was exactly the same as it had been 3 weeks ago. But nothing was the same. And they both knew it. Sophia's first Friday back felt wrong from the moment she walked through the door. The restaurant looked the same, smelled the same. The kitchen noise was familiar, the layout unchanged, but the energy was different. People watched her, whispered when they thought she wasn't listening. Everyone knew what had happened. Everyone knew that Alessandro Vitale had bought Bella Notte because she got fired. She tied her apron with practiced movements and checked the reservation book. Full house tonight. Good. She needed to be too busy to think. Alessandro arrived at 8 o'clock. Table 7. She brought him water and bread without being asked. Welcome back, he said. Thank you, Mr. Vitale. Ossobuco tonight? Unless you prefer something different. No. The usual is fine. She walked away before the conversation could extend further. Professional distance. That was the agreement. That was the only way this could work. But the agreement lasted exactly 1 week. On Tuesday, Alessandro showed up during lunch service. He nodded to Sophia as he passed, but headed straight to the office in the back. She frowned. He never came on Tuesdays. He had a pattern. Fridays at 8. That was it. That was the routine they had maintained for 2 years. On Wednesday, he was there again. This time with 2 men in construction gear, discussing something about the kitchen ventilation system. They gestured at the ceiling, took measurements, made notes. Thursday, he arrived with a woman carrying fabric samples. They sat at a table near the window, examining different options for new chair cushions. By Friday, Sophia understood. Alessandro wasn't just the owner anymore. He was actively managing the place, supervising renovations, meeting with contractors and vendors, making decisions about every aspect of Bella Notte's operations. And he was there constantly. She tried not to notice. Tried to focus on her tables, her customers, her job. But it was impossible to ignore him. He took up space even when he was trying not to. She felt his presence like static electricity, making her hyper-aware of every movement, every word. The dynamic shifted further when Marco, the head server, pulled her aside during her second week back. Boss wants to see you in the office. Sophia's stomach tightened. Why? Didn't say. Just said to send you back when you have a minute. She finished clearing table 9 and headed to the office. Alessandro sat behind the desk that used to belong to Tommy's uncle. He had replaced the old furniture with modern pieces. Clean lines, dark wood. Everything organized with military precision. You wanted to see me? Alessandro looked up from his laptop. Sit down. She remained standing. I'm in the middle of a shift. This won't take long. Sit. Sophia sat. She folded her hands in her lap and waited. I'm restructuring management, Alessandro said. Marco is good with customers, but he's not organized. The inventory system is a disaster. Ordering is inconsistent. We're wasting money on spoiled product because nobody is tracking expiration dates properly. Okay, I want you to take over administrative duties. Inventory. Ordering. Staff scheduling. You'll still work the floor during busy shifts, but your primary responsibility will be operations management. Sophia blinked. That's not what I was hired to do. No, it's a promotion. I didn't ask for a promotion. You're getting one anyway. You're capable. You know the restaurant better than anyone else here. And you're not going to steal from me or cut corners to make yourself look good. I trust you. The last sentence hit harder than it should have. Trust. From a man who trusted almost no one. What's the pay? She asked. Alessandro named a figure that was 40% higher than what she had been making as a server. That's too much. That's what the position is worth. Take it, or I'll hire someone external who won't know the restaurant the way you do. Sophia studied his face. He wasn't bluffing. This was a genuine offer. A real promotion based on merit, but it also meant more time around him. More interaction. More proximity. Just work, she said. That was the agreement. This is work. I need an operations manager. You're qualified. That's business, not personal. She wanted to argue but couldn't find solid ground. He was right. It was a business decision. The fact that it also meant she would be spending more time near him was secondary. Or at least, it should be. Fine, she said. I'll do it. Good. Start Monday. I'll show you the current systems and where we need improvements. Sophia rose, fingers curling around the doorknob. Sophia. She paused. Thank you. She nodded and walked out before her composure could crack. The new responsibilities came with new challenges. Sophia spent Monday morning in the office with Alessandro, learning the inventory software and reviewing vendor contracts. He sat close enough that she caught the faint edge of his cologne when he leaned in. His shoulder brushed hers when he leaned over to point at something on the screen. Small touches. Incidental. But they sent electricity through her nervous system every time. She tried to focus on the numbers, the spreadsheets, the practical details of running a restaurant, but she was intensely aware of him, the way he explained things with patient precision, the way his voice dropped slightly when he was concentrating, the way his hands moved across the keyboard with surprising grace for someone who looked like he solved most problems with violence. By Tuesday, she had identified 3 major issues with the current ordering system. By Wednesday, she had contacted new vendors to get competitive quotes. By Thursday, she realized they had a serious problem. The wine distributor canceled our account, she told Alessandro during the afternoon lull. They won't return my calls. Alessandro's expression darkened. Which distributor? Moretti's. They've been supplying Bellanotte for 15 years. Did they give a reason? No. Just an email saying they were terminating the relationship effective immediately. Alessandro pulled out his phone. He made a call in rapid Italian. His tone was clipped and cold. When he hung up, his jaw was tight. They have ties to the Lombardis, rival family. They don't want association with me. Can we find another distributor? Yes. But it will take time to build the relationship and negotiate terms. He looked at her for a long moment. I have contacts in Brooklyn. Better quality. Better prices. But the meeting will need to happen in person. Okay, when? Tonight, 6 o'clock. I'll be here. No, you'll come with me. Sophia hesitated. Why do I need to be there? Because you're the operations manager. You need to understand how these relationships work. And because they'll offer better terms if they see I'm serious about the restaurant. Bringing you shows investment. She didn't like it. Didn't like the idea of being pulled deeper into his world. But he was right. If she was going to manage operations, she needed to understand all aspects of the business. Fine, but I'm driving myself. No. We go together. It's not a safe neighborhood. I've been to Brooklyn before. Not this part of Brooklyn. They took his car. A black sedan with tinted windows and leather interior that probably cost more than Sophia had earned in the past 5 years combined. She sat in the passenger seat with her hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead. Alessandro drove in silence for the first 10 minutes. Then, without looking at her, he spoke. You're always tense around me. I'm aware. Why? You know why. Explain it to me anyway. Sophia exhaled slowly. Because men like you are dangerous. Because getting close to you means accepting a world I don't want any part of. Because no matter how normal you try to make this seem, it's not normal. None of this is normal. And yet you came back. I needed the job. You could have found another job. Not one that paid as well. So you're here for the money. I'm here because I'm practical. I know what my options are. I know what I can afford to turn down and what I can't. This falls into the second category. Alessandro's hands tightened on the steering wheel. You think very little of me. I don't know you well enough to think anything about you. You've known me for 2 years. I've served you dinner for 2 years. That's not the same as knowing you. He went quiet after that. Sophia stared out the window, watching Brooklyn pass by in a blur of brownstones and graffiti and corner stores. The neighborhood changed gradually. Nicer buildings gave way to rougher blocks. More security bars on windows. More people lingering on corners with watchful eyes. Alessandro pulled up to a building that looked like a social club from the outside. Unmarked door. No sign. Just an address number barely visible in the fading light. He parked and turned to her. When we go inside, let me do the talking. If they ask you direct questions, answer honestly but briefly. Don't volunteer information. Don't stare at anything too long. Just follow my lead. You're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you alert. Alert keeps you safe. They walked inside together. The interior was dimly lit and smelled like cigars and expensive whiskey. Men in expensive suits sat at small tables playing cards. A long bar stretched along one wall. Everyone looked up when Alessandro entered. Some nodded. Others looked away quickly. A man in his 60s approached them. Well-dressed. Silver hair. Warm smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Alessandro, good to see you. Vincent, thank you for meeting on short notice. Of course, anything for Vitale family. His eyes shifted to Sophia. And who is this? Sophia Mitchell. She manages operations at Bella Nota. She'll be handling our account moving forward. Vincent extended his hand. Sophia shook it. His grip was firm, but not aggressive. Welcome, Miss Mitchell. Please, sit. We'll discuss business over drinks. They sat at a table in the corner. Vincent ordered wine. The good stuff. The kind that came without a price tag because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. Alessandro explained what they needed. Consistent supply, quality products, competitive pricing. Vincent listened with the patience of someone who had heard 1,000 similar requests. But when Alessandro mentioned specific wines, specific vintages, Vincent's expression changed. Interest sparked. You know your wines. My mother taught me. She believed good food deserved good wine. Smart woman. She was. They talked for 40 minutes. Sophia mostly listened, occasionally answering questions about volume and delivery schedules. But she watched how men approached Alessandro with deference, how his posture never fully relaxed, how his eyes tracked every person who moved through the room. This was his world. Power and respect built on foundations she couldn't see but could feel. Violence lurking under every polite conversation. Danger wrapped in expensive suits and good manners. Vincent offered terms that were significantly better than what Moretti's had been providing. 30% better. Sophia knew enough about restaurant operations to recognize the discount for what it was. Favor trading, relationship building, currency that had nothing to do with money. We have a deal, Alessandro said, shaking Vincent's hand. Pleasure doing business with you. And Miss Mitchell, if you need anything, you call me directly. Alessandro's people are my people. They left 20 minutes later. Sophia waited until they were back in the car before speaking. Those prices are too good. What does he want in return? Goodwill. Association with my organization. Future favors that may or may not ever be called in. That's not how normal business works. I never claimed this was normal business. Sophia leaned her head against the seat. She felt exhausted. Drained. Like she had just run a marathon in heels. You were right, she said quietly. I wouldn't have gotten those prices on my own. No, you wouldn't have. So I guess I should thank you. You don't have to thank me. You're working for me. I'm giving you the resources to do your job properly. That's how this is supposed to work. They drove back to Manhattan in silence. Sophia processed everything she had seen. Everything she now understood about the world Alessandro operated in. It was exactly as dangerous as she had feared. maybe more so, but it was also effective. Efficient. Built on relationships and loyalty in ways that conventional business never could be. When they pulled up outside Bella Notte, Sophia reached for the door handle. "Wait," Alessandro said. She turned. "You did well tonight. You didn't panic. You didn't ask stupid questions. You represented the restaurant professionally. Is that surprising?" "No, but I wanted you to know I noticed." Sophia nodded. She got out of the car and walked toward the restaurant. Her shift was over, but she had left her bag inside. She needed to grab it before heading home. The dinner rush was winding down. Only a few tables remained occupied. Marco was handling them easily. Sophia grabbed her things from the office and was heading toward the exit when she heard shouting from the kitchen. She pushed through the swinging door to find Chef Antonio and his sous chef screaming at each other in Italian. Pans clattered. Someone slammed a knife down on the cutting board. "What's going on?" Sophia demanded. "He's quitting." Antonio gestured wildly at the sous chef. "Middle of service, coward!" The sous chef ripped off his apron and threw it on the floor. "I'm done working for a psycho. Find someone else." He stormed out through the back door. The kitchen went silent. 3 line cooks stared at Sophia with wide eyes. 2 tables still needed entrees. Dessert orders were coming in. Antonio looked at her with desperation. "I can't do this alone. Not tonight." Sophia had worked in kitchens before. Years ago, when she first moved to New York. She knew her way around a stove. "Show me what needs to be done." For the next 2 hours, Sophia moved through the kitchen with focused intensity, following Antonio's instructions, plating dishes, managing timing. It was chaotic and stressful, and she loved every second of it. This was creation. This was building something with your hands and watching people enjoy it. When the last table was served and the kitchen finally went quiet, Sophia leaned against the counter and laughed. Pure relief. Pure exhaustion. "You're good," Antonio said, grudging respect in his voice. "Where did you learn?" "Long time ago. Different life." She cleaned up and changed out of the borrowed chef's coat. It was almost midnight. The dining room was empty now. Chairs stacked on tables, floors swept, everything quiet and still. Alessandro was waiting by the front door. "I thought you left," Sophia said. "I came back. Wanted to make sure the kitchen situation was handled." "It's handled. For tonight, anyway. I saw you through the window, cooking. Necessity. We needed someone." Alessandro studied her for a long moment. "Have you eaten?" "No. Neither have I." "Sit. I'll make something." "You cook?" "My mother taught me, before she couldn't anymore." He disappeared into the kitchen. Sophia sat at table 7. His table. She was too tired to protest, too tired to maintain walls, too tired for anything except existing in this strange moment. Alessandro returned 15 minutes later with 2 plates of pasta. Simple. Perfect. The smell alone made Sophia's stomach growl. They ate in comfortable silence. The city hummed beyond the windows. Inside Bella Notte, everything was warm and still and safe. "This is good," Sophia said. "Thank you. Your mother taught you well. She taught me everything that mattered." Sophia looked at him. Really looked. Saw past the dangerous exterior to something softer underneath. Grief. Loss. The kind that never fully healed. "I'm sorry you lost her. I'm sorry you grew up without yours." They sat there long after the food was gone, talking quietly about things that mattered. Childhood memories, favorite meals, the restaurants that shaped them. It was the first real conversation they had ever had. No walls, no pretense, just 2 people sharing space and stories. When Sophia finally stood to leave, it was almost 2 a.m. "I should go. I'll walk you out." At the door they paused. The city was quieter now. Softer. The moment felt suspended. "Thank you for dinner," Sophia said. "Thank you for saving service tonight." She nodded, already reaching for the door, when he said her name. "Sophia." She paused and turned. "This. Tonight. Working together. It doesn't have to be just about fear and danger. There are other parts to it too." She knew what he meant. The efficiency. The results. The strange comfort of proximity. "Maybe," she said softly, but the fear and danger are still there. I know. I won't pretend they're not. Sophia walked out into the Manhattan night. Her mind spun with everything that had happened. The meeting in Brooklyn, the kitchen emergency, the quiet dinner. Everything was changing. The careful distance she had maintained was eroding, and she had no idea how to stop it, or if she even wanted to anymore. The weeks following the dinner at Bellanotte changed everything in ways Sophia couldn't quite name. Small shifts, subtle movements toward something she still refused to acknowledge. Alessandro started showing up earlier in the mornings. Not for meetings or renovations. Just arriving before the staff, making coffee in the industrial machine that had been there since before Sophia started working. He would leave a cup on the desk in the office. Black with 1 sugar. Exactly how she took it. She never thanked him. Never mentioned it, but she drank it every morning. He also assigned security to walk the staff out after closing shifts. Not just Sophia. Everyone. He framed it as general safety measures, but Sophia noticed the guard always waited until she got into her cab before leaving his post. The air conditioning in the kitchen had been broken for 8 months. 3 different repair companies had come and left, saying the system needed complete replacement. Too expensive. Not worth it. Within a week of Alessandro taking over, new units were installed. Top of the line. The kitchen staff nearly cried with relief. Sophia watched these gestures accumulate. Small kindnesses wrapped in practical justifications. He never drew attention to them, never asked for gratitude or acknowledgement. He just did them and moved on. It made maintaining distance infinitely harder. One Thursday evening, after the dinner rush had cleared and most of the staff had gone home, Sophia was doing inventory in the walk-in refrigerator. Clipboard in hand, counting produce, checking expiration dates. The cold air felt good after hours on the hot floor. She didn't hear Alessandro enter until he spoke. "You're working late." She jumped, nearly dropping the clipboard. "You scared me." "Sorry, I saw the light on. Just finishing inventory. We're low on fresh basil and the tomatoes from our usual supplier aren't good quality anymore. I'm looking for alternatives." Alessandro leaned against the doorframe. He wore dark jeans and a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Casual. She had never seen him casual before. "You care about this place," he observed. "It's my job to care." "No. You could do your job adequately without caring this much." "This is different," Sophia continued counting, trying to ignore how aware she was of him standing there. The refrigerator suddenly felt smaller, more intimate. "Restaurants were the first places that felt like home to me," she said, not looking up from her clipboard. "I learned early that if you worked hard and showed up on time, people would give you a chance. Didn't matter where you came from or what your story was. Just mattered that you did the work. Where did you come from?" She hesitated. This was personal. Too personal. But something about the late hour and the cold air, and the fact that he had shared pieces of his own story made her answer. "Foster care. 7 different homes between ages 6 and 18. Some better than others. None of them permanent." Alessandro went very still. "Your parents?" "Mother lost custody when I was 6. Neglect, drug addiction. I don't know where she is now. Don't want to know. Father was never in the picture. I'm sorry. Don't be. I survived. Some kids don't. Surviving isn't the same as living." Sophia finally looked up at him. His expression was open, genuinely concerned. No pity, just understanding. "No," she agreed quietly. "It's not. But you learn to take what you can get." Alessandro pushed off the doorframe and walked into the refrigerator. The temperature dropped further when the door closed behind him. He stood close enough that Sophia could see the details she usually missed. A small scar above his left eyebrow. Flecks of gold in his dark brown eyes. The way his jaw tightened when he was thinking. "My mother had a restaurant," he said. "Nothing fancy. Small place in Little Italy. She made everything from scratch. Spent 16 hours a day in that kitchen. What happened to it? My father was killed when I was 12. Cosa Nostra Siciliana. The Sicilian Mafia. Wrong place, wrong time. Caught in crossfire meant for someone else. After he died, my mother tried to keep the restaurant going, but the Sicilians wanted protection money she couldn't afford. They burned the place down when she refused to pay. Sophia's chest tightened. That's horrible. She worked 3 jobs after that. Cleaning offices, washing dishes, taking any work she could find to keep me fed and in school. Worked herself to death, literally. Heart attack at 46 from exhaustion and stress. Alessandro, I was 19. Had just joined Vitale organization. Low level, running errands, learning the business. When she died, I promised myself I would never be powerless again. Never let anyone take what was mine. Never fail to protect the people I cared about. He looked directly at her. The intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. That's why I bought Bella Notte, not just because of what happened to you. Because this place reminds me of her restaurant. The smell, the sounds, the way the kitchen feels alive during service. Being here makes me feel connected to her again. Sophia set down the clipboard. I didn't know. I don't tell many people. But you should understand why this matters to me. Why I'm not walking away from it. They stood in the cold refrigerator, sharing space and stories and a silence that felt heavier than any conversation. Sophia realized she was shivering. Not from the temperature. From proximity. From the way Alessandro was looking at her like she was something precious that might break. You're cold, he said. I'm fine. You're shaking. It's a refrigerator. That's what happens. He smiled slightly. Come on, let's get out of here before we both freeze. They walked back into the kitchen. The warmth hit Sophia's skin like a physical force. She rubbed her arms, trying to restore circulation. Alessandro watched her. Coffee? It's almost 11. So? I won't sleep. Neither will I. Keep me company anyway. Sophia should have said no, should have grabbed her things and gone home. But she didn't want to. For the first time in 2 years, she wanted to stay in his presence, wanted to keep talking, wanted to see what else lived beneath the surface of Alessandro Vitale. They sat in the empty dining room. Alessandro made espresso using the machine behind the bar. He brought 2 small cups and sat across from her at table 7. Tell me about the foster homes, he said. Which one was worst? The third one. Father was angry. Mother pretended not to notice. I lasted 4 months before they sent me back. And the best? The last one. Mrs. Huang. She was older. Widowed. Took in foster kids because her own children had grown and moved away. She taught me to cook. Basic stuff. How to make fried rice. How to time vegetables so they stayed crisp. She's the reason I wanted to work in restaurants. Do you still talk to her? She died 6 years ago. But I visit her grave on her birthday. Bring flowers. Tell her about my life. Alessandro's expression softened. She would be proud of how far you've come. I hope so. They drank their espresso in comfortable silence. Outside, Manhattan moved through its late-night rhythms. Taxis honked. Sirens wailed in the distance. The city never slept. Never stopped. What about you? Sophia asked. After your mother died, how did you survive that? I didn't. Not in any healthy way. I threw myself into the organization. Worked every job they gave me, proved myself useful, climbed ranks. By 25, I was running operations. By 30, I controlled everything Vitale family touched. I became exactly what I needed to become, to make sure no one could ever hurt me again. And did it work? Depends how you define work. I have power, respect, resources. No one threatens me. No one takes what's mine. He paused. But I'm also alone. Have been for years. Power doesn't keep you warm at night. Respect doesn't fill empty rooms. Sophia's heart clenched. She understood that loneliness, had lived in it herself for most of her life. Why are you telling me this? She asked softly. Because you asked. Because you're the first person in a long time who actually wanted to know. Not for leverage, not for advantage. Just because you're curious about who I am. I shouldn't be curious. Why not? Because getting curious about you is dangerous. Getting close to you is dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. And yet you're still here. Sophia had no answer for that. She was still here. Had been coming back every day for weeks now. Working beside him. Learning his rhythms. Noticing small details. The way he ran his hand through his hair when he was frustrated. The way his voice dropped when he was tired. The way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. She was noticing too much. Feeling too much. The espresso cup sat empty between them. The restaurant was completely silent now. Just the two of them in this bubble of artificial light, while the city sprawled dark and endless beyond the windows. Alessandro stood. "I should let you get home." Sophia stood too. They walked toward the front door together. He grabbed her coat from the hook and held it open for her. She slipped her arms through the sleeves, acutely aware of his hands near her shoulders. His breath against her hair. At the door, they paused. The moment stretched, extended. Neither of them moved to break it. "Thank you for telling me about your mother," Sophia said. "Thank you for listening." "Alessandro?" "Yes?" She turned to face him fully. They stood so close. Too close. She could feel the heat radiating from his body, and his cologne, clean and sharp, cut through the coffee and kitchen scents. "This can't become something." "I know. I mean it. We work together. You own the restaurant. I'm your employee. There are boundaries." "I agree." "Then why are you looking at me like that?" His eyes searched her face. "Like what? Like you want to cross every boundary we just talked about." Alessandro didn't deny it. Didn't step back. He raised one hand slowly, giving her time to move away. She didn't. His fingers brushed her cheek. Gentle. Tentative. Like he was touching something infinitely fragile. "I've wanted to cross those boundaries since the day you first served me dinner," he said quietly. "For 2 years, I sat at that table watching you move through this restaurant like you owned it. Efficient, competent, kind to everyone. You never looked at me with fear or calculation, just professional courtesy. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Alessandro, you were the only person who made me feel normal. Human. Not a monster or a god. Just a man who wanted a good meal and a moment of peace. So yes, I want to cross boundaries. I have for a long time." Sophia's breath came faster. Her pulse hammered in her throat. She should step back, should leave, should maintain the professional distance that kept her safe. But she didn't want to be safe anymore. She leaned forward, just an inch, just enough to close part of the space between them. Alessandro's hand moved from her cheek to the back of her neck. Warm. Sure. He leaned down until their faces were inches apart. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. "I should." But are you going to?" Sophia's mind screamed yes. Her body said no. She stood frozen between two impossible choices: safety or truth, distance or connection. Alessandro waited, patient, giving her control, giving her choice. She closed her eyes. "If we do this, everything changes. I know. There's no going back. I don't want to go back." Sophia opened her eyes, looked directly into his, saw her own fear reflected there, her own want. She started to lean forward, started to close that final distance. Their mouths were a breath apart when reality crashed back. She pulled away. "I can't." Alessandro's hand dropped from her neck. He stepped back, giving her space. His expression was controlled, but she could see the strain in it. The effort it took to respect her choice. "I'm sorry," Sophia whispered. "Don't be. You're right. This is complicated. Dangerous. All the things you said. Then why did you—" "Because I'm tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel. Tired of sitting at that table every week wanting more than just dinner. But wanting and having are different things. I understand that." Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. "I need to go." "Okay." She walked out into the cold Manhattan night, walked until her breathing evened out, until her pulse slowed, until the ghost of his touch faded from her skin. But even after she got home and lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she could still feel it. The almost kiss. The moment when everything nearly changed. Alessandro stayed in the restaurant long after she left. He sat at table 7 in the dark, staring at nothing, thinking about choices and consequences, about walls and what it meant to tear them down. He had meant what he said. He had crossed that line in his head a long time ago. Now Sophia knew it too. The secret was out. The want was acknowledged, and nothing would ever be the same between them again. The text message came on Tuesday afternoon, while Sophia was reviewing supplier invoices in the office. Unknown number. She almost deleted it without reading, but something made her open it. We know you work closely with Vitale. We can make it worth your time to share information. Check your locker. Sophia's blood went cold. She stared at the screen, reading the message 3 times. Her locker. How did anyone know she had a staff locker? How did they get her number? She stood quickly, chair scraping against the floor. The staff area was empty this time of day. Most people didn't arrive until 4 for dinner prep. Sophia's locker was second from the left, combination lock that had been sticky for months. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside, tucked between her spare uniform and her sneakers, was an envelope. Thick, heavy. She pulled it out and felt the contents. Cash. A lot of cash. Sophia's hands trembled as she opened it. 50 $100 bills. $5,000. More money than she made in 2 months. A note was paperclipped to the bills. Down payment. Call this number when you're ready to talk. We just want schedules. Meeting times. Who he sees. Basic information. Easy money. No signature. Just a phone number written in neat block letters. Sophia felt sick. She shoved the envelope back in her locker and locked it. Her mind raced. Who were these people? How long had they been watching her? And what would happen if she didn't cooperate? She needed to tell Alessandro. Immediately. But Alessandro wasn't at the restaurant. He had meetings across town all afternoon. Wouldn't be back until evening service. Sophia tried his cell phone. It went to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. This wasn't something you explained in 30 seconds. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. She went through motions mechanically. Checked inventory. Placed orders. Responded to staff questions. But her mind stayed locked on that envelope. That money. That threat disguised as opportunity. Alessandro arrived at 7:30. Sophia watched him enter through the front, speaking into his phone in rapid Italian. His expression was tense. Bad day. She hated adding to it, but this couldn't wait. She caught his eye across the dining room. He read something in her face because he ended his call mid-sentence and walked directly to her. What's wrong? I need to talk to you. Privately. They went to the office. Sophia closed the door and showed him the text message. Then she retrieved the envelope from her locker and placed it on the desk between them. Alessandro's expression went completely still. He opened the envelope, counted the money with quick efficiency, read the note. When he looked up, his eyes were dark and cold. When did this happen? Text came around 2 o'clock. The money was already in my locker. Did you see anyone suspicious? Anyone watching you? No. I don't even know how they got my number or knew about the locker. Alessandro pulled out his phone and made a call. He spoke in Italian, voice clipped and controlled. When he hung up, he was already moving. Come on, we're leaving. What? Alessandro, I have a shift. Marco can handle it. You're coming with me. Now. The command in his voice left no room for argument. Sophia grabbed her jacket and followed him out through the back entrance. His car was parked in the alley, engine already running. A second car pulled up behind them. 2 men Sophia didn't recognize got out and stationed themselves at either end of the alley. Alessandro opened the passenger door. Get in. Sophia got in. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was real. This was happening. Someone had targeted her because of her proximity to Alessandro. They drove in tense silence for several blocks before Alessandro spoke. Albanian mob. They've been watching me for weeks, looking for leverage. Now they think they found it. What do they want? Information. Access. Ways to predict my movements so they can undermine my operations. They're not subtle and they're not patient. The fact that they approached you directly means they're getting desperate. What happens if I refuse? Alessandro's jaw tightened. They escalate. Threats become actions. You become a target instead of an opportunity. Fear crawled up Sophia's spine. What kind of actions? The kind I won't let happen. They pulled up to a building in Midtown. Tall. Modern. The kind of place with doormen and security cameras and residents who paid more in monthly maintenance than Sophia earned in a year. Where are we? Safe house. One of several I maintain. You're staying here until I handle this. I'm not staying in a safe house. I have a job. A life. I can't just disappear. Alessandro turned to face her fully. Sophia. Listen to me carefully. The Albanians don't make idle threats. If they contacted you once, they'll contact you again. Next time it won't be money. It will be pressure. Threats. Maybe violence. I need you somewhere I know you're protected while I deal with this. Deal with it how? However I need to. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Sophia stared at him. His expression was iron, immovable. But underneath she saw something else. Fear. Not for himself. For her. I won't be a prisoner, she said quietly. I can't live like that. I grew up with no control over my life. I'm not going back to that feeling. Alessandro exhaled slowly. What do you want me to do? Ignore the threat? Pretend you're not in danger? No, but I won't hide either. Increase security at the restaurant if you need to. Put someone on my building. Do whatever makes sense. But I'm not running. They sat in the car outside the safe house, neither moving. The city hummed around them. Normal people walking normal lives. Sophia envied them. You're stubborn, Alessandro said finally. I prefer determined. Stubborn. Practical. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. Then it vanished. Fine. I'll put security on you. But you follow their instructions. You don't go anywhere alone. You check in regularly. And if I say you need to move, you move. No arguments. Agreed. I'm serious, Sophia. This isn't negotiable. I understand. He made more calls. Arrangements were made in Italian too fast for Sophia to follow. 20 minutes later, a man in his 30s arrived at the car window. Alessandro rolled it down. This is Marcus. Former military. He'll be your primary security. He goes where you go. Marcus nodded to Sophia. Professional. Polite. Built like he could break someone in half without much effort. Ma'am, I don't need a bodyguard, Sophia protested weakly. Yes, Alessandro said. You do. They drove Sophia back to her apartment in Queens. Marcus followed in a separate vehicle. When they arrived, Alessandro got out with her. I'm walking you up. Her building was old, 5 stories, no elevator. They climbed to the 4th floor. Sophia unlocked her apartment door, and Alessandro stepped inside first, scanning the small space with professional assessment. Studio apartment. Kitchenette in one corner. Bed against the far wall. Bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. You live here, he said. Not a question. A statement heavy with unspoken judgment. Yes, it's small. I know. It's what I can afford. Alessandro walked to the window and looked down at the street. No security cameras in the building. Fire escape right outside your window. Ground floor entrance has a broken lock. This place is a nightmare from a safety perspective. It's home. He turned to face her. You could stay somewhere better, somewhere safer. I like my independence. Independence won't matter if you're dead. The blunt words hit hard. Sophia sank onto her bed. The reality of the situation was finally settling in. She was in danger. Real danger. Because she worked at a restaurant owned by a man who operated in a world where violence was currency. Alessandro sat beside her, not touching, just present. I'm sorry, he said quietly. This is my fault. I brought you into this. I chose to come back to work. That's on me. You needed a job. I should have anticipated consequences. You can't predict everything. I should have predicted this. The Albanians have been pushing for territory for months. I knew they would look for leverage eventually. I should have kept you at a distance. Sophia looked at him. Is that what you wanted? Distance? Alessandro met her eyes. No, but it would have been smarter. They sat in silence. Outside, the city moved through its evening rhythms. Car horns, distant sirens, someone playing music too loud. What happens now? Sophia asked. I reach out to their leadership. We negotiate. I offer them something they want in exchange for leaving you alone permanently. What could you possibly offer them? Territory in Brooklyn. Access to port operations. Money. Power takes different forms. I'll find something. And if they refuse? Alessandro's expression went cold. They won't refuse. The certainty in his voice sent a chill through her. This was the side of Alessandro she tried not to think about. the side that solved problems with force when negotiation failed. How long will it take? Days? Maybe a week. Depends on how reasonable they want to be. And I just... What? Go about my life with a bodyguard following me everywhere? Yes, I know it's not ideal. But it's necessary. Sophia stood and walked to the window. Marcus was already positioned on the street below, leaning against his car with clear sightlines in both directions. Professional. Prepared. This is insane, she whispered. A month ago I was just a server. Now I have security details and safe houses and Albanian mobsters leaving cash in my locker. Alessandro came to stand behind her, close but not touching. You can walk away, I'll still protect you. I'll still handle the Albanians. But you don't have to stay at Bellanode. You don't have to stay near me. Sophia turned. They were inches apart. She could see the exhaustion in his face. The weight of constant vigilance. Do you want me to walk away? I want you to be safe. That's not what I asked. Alessandro's hand came up to her face. Gentle. Tentative. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. No, he said quietly. I don't want you to walk away. I haven't wanted that since the first night you served me dinner 2 years ago. But what I want and what's best for you are very different things. Maybe I should get to decide what's best for me. And what do you decide? Sophia's breath caught. She was standing on another edge. Another moment where everything could change. I decide I'm tired of being afraid. I decide that danger has always been part of my life in different forms. I decide that maybe, for once, I want something I actually want, instead of just something safe. Alessandro's eyes searched her face. You're sure? No, but I'm choosing it anyway. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time, giving her choice. This time Sophia didn't pull away. Their lips met. Soft. Careful. A kiss that felt like a promise and a risk all at once. When they separated, Alessandro rested his forehead against hers. I'll keep you safe, he whispered. Whatever it takes. I know. They stood there in her small apartment while the city moved around them. Two people choosing danger over safety. Connection over distance. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 7 days passed. 7 days of Sophia living with constant security. Marcus followed her everywhere. To the restaurant. Home. The grocery store. Everywhere. She hated it. Hated the loss of privacy. Hated feeling watched constantly. But Alessandro had been clear. This was non-negotiable until the Albanian situation was resolved. On the 8th day, Alessandro came to the restaurant during the afternoon lull. Sophia was in the office reviewing next week's schedule when he walked in and closed the door behind him. It's handled. Sophia looked up. The Albanians? Yes. We came to an agreement. They get expanded port access and Red Hook. I get assurances that you and anyone connected to Bellanode are completely off limits. Permanently. Relief flooded through her. It's really over? The immediate threat, yes. I can't promise there will never be other problems. That's the nature of this life. But this specific situation is resolved. What does that mean for Marcus? He'll stay for another 3 weeks. Make sure the agreement holds. After that, we'll reassess. Sophia nodded. A few more weeks of constant surveillance felt manageable, if it meant real resolution on the horizon. Thank you, she said, for handling it. You don't need to thank me. This happened because of me. I was cleaning up my own mess. Still, thank you. Alessandro moved closer to the desk. They hadn't been alone together since the kiss in her apartment. Work had kept them in public spaces with staff constantly around. Now, in the privacy of the closed office, the memory of that kiss hung heavy in the air between them. How are you? He asked quietly. Really, tired, stressed, trying to pretend everything is normal when it's not. I know the feeling. They stood there looking at each other. So many things unsaid. So many complications. The moment broke when Marco knocked on the door. Boss, sorry to interrupt. There's someone here to see Sophia. Alessandro frowned. Who? Federal agents. They want to ask some questions. Sophia's stomach dropped. Alessandro's expression went carefully neutral. Tell them we'll be out in a minute. Marco nodded and left. Alessandro turned to Sophia. FBI? They're probably investigating connections to my organization. Standard procedure. Don't lie to them, but don't volunteer information either. Answer exactly what they ask and nothing more. Understand? Yes. And Sophia, you have rights. You don't have to talk to them without a lawyer present if you don't want to. I didn't do anything wrong. I know. But that doesn't always matter to federal agents building a case. They walked out together. 2 people in dark suits stood near the hostess station. A man and a woman, both in their 40s, both carrying themselves with the particular confidence of federal law enforcement. The man had salt and pepper hair and tired eyes. The woman was shorter, sharp features, expensive watch. The man stepped forward. Sophia Mitchell? Yes. He pulled out identification. Agent David Reeves, FBI. This is Agent Patricia Kim. We'd like to ask you a few questions if you have time. About what? About your employment here. About the restaurant's recent change in ownership. Just routine questions. Won't take long. Sophia glanced at Alessandro. He gave a barely perceptible nod. Permission to cooperate within limits. Okay. We can talk in the office. Actually, Agent Kim said, we'd prefer to speak with you alone, without Mr. Vitale present. Alessandro's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Sophia, you don't have to agree to that. You can have representation. It's fine, Sophia said. She wasn't afraid of questions. She had nothing to hide. She led the agents to the office. They sat across the desk from her. Agent Reeves pulled out a small notebook. Agent Kim folded her hands and studied Sophia with assessing eyes. Before we start, Reeves said, I need you to understand this is voluntary. You are not under arrest. If you want an attorney, we can stop and reschedule. I understand, Sophia said. How long have you worked at Bellinote? Reeves asked. 3 years. And what's your position? I started as a server. Now I'm operations manager. I handle inventory, ordering, staff scheduling, vendor relationships. When did that promotion happen? About a month ago. After Mr. Vitale purchased the restaurant. Tell us about that purchase. Were you aware it was happening? Sophia recounted the night Tommy fired her. Alessandro's intervention, the rapid acquisition. She kept her answers factual and brief. And you came back to work here voluntarily? Kim asked. Yes. Even knowing who Alessandro Vitale is? His connections? I needed a job. Bellinote offered good pay, and I knew the work. You weren't concerned about working for someone with suspected organized crime ties? Sophia chose her words carefully. Mr. Vitale runs a legitimate restaurant. My job is legal. I manage day-to-day operations. That's all. Reeves made notes. In your role as operations manager, do you have access to financial records, bank accounts, payment systems? I have access to operational accounts, payroll, vendor payments, day-to-day expenses. I don't handle anything beyond normal restaurant business. Have you noticed any unusual financial activity? Large cash deposits? Payments to companies you don't recognize? No. Everything I've seen has been standard restaurant operations. Kim leaned forward. Miss Mitchell, we're investigating potential money laundering operations connected to the Vitale organization. We have reason to believe certain businesses, possibly including restaurants, are being used to move illegal funds. If you've seen anything irregular, now is the time to tell us. I haven't seen anything irregular. You're sure? No unexplained cash? No suspicious meetings? No unusual visitors? Restaurants deal in cash regularly. We have meetings with vendors and suppliers constantly. I haven't seen anything that seemed unusual or illegal. Reeves pulled out a business card and slid it across the desk. If that changes. If you notice something that concerns you, call me. Anytime. Sophia took the card. Agent David Reeves, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Phone number and email printed in professional font. Are we done? She asked. For now, Kim said. We may have follow-up questions. We appreciate your cooperation. They stood. Sophia walked them to the door. Alessandro was waiting in the dining room, standing near the windows with his phone in his hand. He watched the agents leave, then approached Sophia. Are you okay? Fine. They asked about financial records and unusual activity. I told them the truth. I haven't seen anything. Good. Alessandro? Not here. Let's go somewhere private. They went to his car. He drove without speaking, heading toward the waterfront. When he parked overlooking the Hudson River, the sun was starting to set, painting the water in shades of orange and gold. FBI has been investigating me for years, Alessandro said finally. They know what I do. They just can't prove it. I keep my legitimate businesses completely separate from everything else. Bellinata is clean. Every transaction is legal. Every dollar is accounted for. I would never risk bringing federal attention to something that matters personally to me. They think you're laundering money. They think a lot of things. Most of them are true, but not about the restaurant. Sophia had known his name for 2 years. The whispers, the sudden hush in a room when it was spoken, the way people measured their words around him. But knowing a reputation was not the same as hearing him claim the truth with his own mouth. Sophia turned to face him. Tell me the truth. All of it. Not just about Bellanotte. About what you actually do. Alessandro was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured and honest. I run an organization that controls shipping operations, construction contracts, waste management, and protection services across 3 boroughs. Some of those operations are legal. Some are not. We move goods that don't always go through proper channels. We enforce contracts that courts won't touch. We provide services that exist in gray areas of the law. You mean illegal areas? Yes. Drugs? No. I don't touch narcotics. My mother's brother died from an overdose. That's a line I won't cross. Violence? Alessandro's eyes met hers. When necessary. I try to avoid it. But in my world, sometimes force is the only language people understand. Sophia felt her chest tighten. Hearing it stated plainly was different from suspecting it, different from knowing abstractly. This was concrete, real. Alessandro Vitale ran a criminal organization. He broke laws. He hurt people when he deemed it necessary. Why are you telling me this? She whispered. Because you asked. Because you deserve honesty. Because if this is going to be something real between us, you need to know exactly who I am, not the version I present to the world. The actual truth. And if I can't accept it, then we end this now, before either of us gets more invested, before it becomes impossible to walk away. Sophia looked out at the water. The city skyline reflected in the Hudson. All those buildings full of people living normal lives, working normal jobs, dating normal men who didn't come with FBI investigations and Albanian threats. She could have that. Could walk away right now. Go back to being just Sophia Mitchell, operations manager at a restaurant. Keep professional distance from the owner. Let this potential relationship die before it fully formed. It would be smart, safe, sensible. I need time to think, she said. Alessandro nodded. Take all the time you need. How much time will you give me? As much as you want. I'm not going anywhere. He drove her back to the restaurant. Sophia got into her own car and drove home to Queens. Marcus followed at a discreet distance. She waved to him when she got inside her building. He nodded and took up his position on the street. Inside her apartment, Sophia sat on her bed and stared at Agent Reeves's business card. She could call. Could tell them she knew Alessandro ran criminal operations. Could cooperate with their investigation. Maybe they would offer protection. Maybe they would help her disappear if things got dangerous. But that wasn't what she wanted. The realization hit her slowly. She didn't want to disappear. Didn't want to betray Alessandro. Despite everything he had just told her. Despite knowing the truth about his life. She wanted to stay. Not because she was trapped. Not because she was afraid. But because underneath all the danger and complication, she saw something real. Someone who understood loneliness. Someone who knew what it meant to survive. Someone who looked at her like she mattered more than anything else in his complicated world. 2 days passed. Sophia went to work. Did her job. Avoided Alessandro as much as possible while she processed. He gave her space. Didn't push. Didn't pressure. Just existed in the background of her life, waiting for her decision. On the 3rd day, Sophia found him in the restaurant during the afternoon. He was reviewing paperwork at table 7, his usual spot. She walked over and sat down across from him. He looked up. Hi. Have you decided? I'm still thinking. Okay. Can I ask you something? Anything. If I choose this, can you promise me the restaurant stays clean? That Bellinotte never becomes part of your other operations? I promise. This place is separate. It stays separate. And can you promise that you'll be honest with me? Not about business details. I don't need to know specifics. But about anything that puts me at risk. Anything I need to be aware of for my own safety. Yes, I can promise that. Sophia took a deep breath. I grew up with no control over my life. I was moved from home to home. Had decisions made for me by strangers. Spent years feeling powerless. I know. Working in restaurants gave me back control. I could choose where I worked, how hard I pushed, what risks I took. And for years, I chose safety. I chose distance from anything that felt dangerous or unstable. Alessandro waited. Let her work through it. But safety is an illusion, Sophia continued. I learned that watching foster siblings get hurt in safe homes. Watching people struggle despite doing everything right. Safety doesn't protect you from life. It just limits what you're willing to risk. What are you saying? I'm saying I've thought about this. Really thought about it. And I know the smart thing would be to walk away. To find another job. To date someone normal who doesn't come with federal investigations and security details. Yes, that would be smart. But I don't want smart. I want real. And what I feel when I'm around you is the most real thing I've experienced in years. She met his eyes. So I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you, with full knowledge of who you are and what your world involves. Alessandro's expression transformed. Relief. Joy. Something deeper that she couldn't quite name. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. He reached across the table and took her hand. His grip was warm, strong, certain. I'll keep you safe, he said quietly. That's not negotiable. You're choosing to stay in my life, but you're not choosing to be unprotected. Understood? Understood. And if you ever change your mind, if this becomes too much, you tell me. No judgment, no consequences. You can walk away whenever you need to. Okay. They sat there holding hands across table 7. The restaurant was empty except for kitchen staff prepping for dinner service. Afternoon light filtered through the windows. Outside, Manhattan moved through its rhythms. Inside, something fundamental shifted. Sophia had made her choice. Now she would live with it. Whatever came next, she was ready. The first morning after Sophia made her choice, she woke up feeling different. Lighter. Like a weight she had been carrying for 2 years had finally been set down. She checked her phone. A text from Alessandro, sent at 6 a.m. Good morning. Coffee is ready when you get here. Sophia smiled. Small gestures. Consistent. Reliable. These were the things that mattered more than grand declarations. She arrived at Bellinotte at 9. The restaurant was quiet, morning light streaming through the windows. Alessandro was in the office, reviewing something on his laptop. A cup of coffee sat on the desk, black with 1 sugar. You're early, he said without looking up. So are you. I'm always early. Sophia picked up the coffee and took a sip. Perfect temperature. Perfect sweetness. He had been making her coffee every morning for weeks now, and he knew exactly how she liked it. Thank you, she said. You're welcome. They settled into the day's work. Sophia had vendor calls to make, schedules to finalize. Alessandro had his own meetings, his own responsibilities. But throughout the day, their paths crossed. Small moments, his hand on her lower back as he passed behind her in the narrow hallway. Her fingers brushing his when she handed him paperwork. Nothing dramatic. Just presence. Just choice being lived out in tiny increments. The week passed in similar fashion. They worked together during the day, had dinner together most nights after service ended, talked about everything and nothing, childhood memories, favorite books, the small details that built intimacy brick by brick. On Friday night, Alessandro sat at table 7 during dinner service. Sophia brought him his usual order without asking. When she set the plate down, he caught her wrist gently. "Sit with me. Just for a minute. I'm working. Marco can handle the floor for 5 minutes." Sophia sat. The dining room buzzed with conversation and clinking silverware. They existed in a small bubble of quiet within the noise. "I've been thinking about something," Alessandro said. "What?" "The first night I came here, 2 years ago. I had just buried someone. One of my men, young kid, 23, got caught in crossfire that wasn't meant for him." Sophia's chest tightened. "I'm sorry. I came to dinner because I didn't want to be alone but couldn't stand being around my own people. Everyone looking at me to make decisions, to be strong, to not show weakness." He paused. "You served me that night. Efficient. Kind. You didn't know who I was yet. Treated me like any other customer. And for 1 hour, I got to be just a man eating dinner. Not a boss. Not a killer. Just someone who needed a good meal and a moment of peace. I remember that night. You looked exhausted. I was. I've been exhausted for years, but sitting at this table every Friday gave me something to look forward to. One night a week where I could pretend to be normal, where someone treated me like I was human." Sophia reached across the table and took his hand. "You are human. Complicated and dangerous and involved in things I don't fully understand. But human. I know that now. You taught me that." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Sophia stood. "I need to get back to work. But we'll talk more tonight, after closing. I'll be here." The evening continued. Service ran smoothly. No disasters, no emergencies. Just a restaurant doing what restaurants do. Feeding people. Creating moments. Building memories. When the last customer left and the staff finished cleaning, Sophia found Alessandro waiting by the front windows. He stood silhouetted against the city lights, hands in his pockets, watching the street below. "Ready?" he asked when she approached. "For what?" "I want to show you something." They took his car. He drove through Manhattan's late-night traffic, heading downtown. When he parked in Little Italy, Sophia looked around in confusion. "Why are we here?" "You'll see." They walked half a block. Alessandro stopped in front of an empty storefront. Dark windows, faded sign. Clearly closed for years. "This was my mother's restaurant," he said quietly. "Bella Rosa. She opened it when I was 8. Closed when I was 12 after my father died. The Sicilians burned it 6 months later when she couldn't pay protection money." Sophia looked at the abandoned space. She could imagine it filled with light and life. Could picture a younger Alessandro helping his mother in the kitchen. Learning to cook. Learning that food could be love. "I bought the building 3 years ago," Alessandro continued. "Before I bought Bellanotti. Paid twice what it was worth to get the owner to sell. I've kept it empty. Couldn't decide what to do with it." "What do you want to do with it?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to rebuild it exactly as it was. Bring Bella Rosa back to life. But I can't recreate the past. My mother is gone. That version of this place is gone." Sophia studied his profile. The grief was still there. Probably always would be. Grief didn't disappear. It just became something you carried differently. "Maybe it doesn't need to be Bella Rosa," she said. "Maybe it could be something new. Something that honors what it was while being something different." Alessandro looked at her. "What are you suggesting?" "I don't know yet. But you don't have to decide tonight. The building will still be here when you're ready." They stood on the quiet street for a while longer. Then Alessandro took her hand, and they walked back to the car. The drive to her apartment in Queens took 20 minutes. When they arrived, he parked but didn't turn off the engine. "Do you want to come up?" Sophia asked. "Do you want me to?" "Yes." Alessandro turned off the car. They climbed the 4 flights to her studio apartment. Inside, Sophia kicked off her shoes and went to the small kitchen area to make tea. Alessandro sat on her bed since there was no couch. The space was too small for pretense. "This apartment is terrible," he said. Sophia laughed. "It's not that bad. There's no security. The building is falling apart. You deserve better. I like it here. It's mine. You could have something nicer, safer. Are you offering to be my landlord now?" "I'm offering to give you options." Sophia brought 2 mugs of tea and sat beside him. Their shoulders touched in the small space. "I don't need you to solve all my problems, Alessandro. I need you to be present. To be honest. To be someone I can trust. The rest I can figure out myself. You're very independent. I had to be. No one was going to take care of me. I learned early that I was responsible for my own survival. You're not alone anymore. I know. But old habits are hard to break." Alessandro set down his tea and turned to face her fully. "I want to do this right. Whatever this is between us. I want to build something real. Not rushed. Not based on crisis or adrenaline. Something steady. What does that look like for you?" "I don't know. I've never done this before. Never let anyone close enough to matter this much." "Neither have I." They looked at each other. Two people who had spent years protecting themselves from exactly this kind of vulnerability. This kind of risk. Alessandro leaned forward. This time when they kissed, it wasn't tentative or interrupted. It was sure. Certain. 2 years of tension and restraint finally released. Sophia's hands found his shoulders. His arms wrapped around her waist. The kiss deepened, intensified, became something that promised more than just this moment. When they finally separated, both breathing hard, Alessandro rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me tonight," Sophia whispered. "Are you sure?" "Yes." He stayed. They lay in her small bed talking until 3 in the morning. About everything. About nothing. Building intimacy one story at a time. When they finally fell asleep, tangled together in the narrow space, Sophia felt safer than she had in years. The weeks that followed established new rhythms. Sophia and Alessandro were together, not hiding it, not advertising it, just existing as two people who had chosen each other despite all the complications. The staff at Bellanotte figured it out quickly, the way Alessandro looked at Sophia, the way she smiled when he entered a room, the small touches that passed between them. No one commented directly, but everyone knew. Sophia's official promotion to general manager came with business cards and a salary that finally allowed her to start saving money. Alessandro gave her full autonomy over operations. He trusted her judgment, let her make decisions without constantly second-guessing. It was the kind of professional respect she had always wanted, but never experienced before. The FBI came back twice more. Same questions, same fishing for information. Sophia gave the same answers. She saw nothing illegal, knew nothing useful. Eventually they stopped coming. Either they gave up, or decided she genuinely had nothing to offer their investigation. Marcus, her bodyguard, was reassigned after the Albanian agreement held for 3 weeks. Sophia was glad for the returned privacy, but surprised to find she missed his steady presence. He had been professional, respectful, never intrusive. She told Alessandro this one night, and he smiled. "Marcus is still around. You just don't see him anymore. But he's there." "Alessandro." "What? You think I'm going to completely remove security just because one immediate threat is resolved? There will always be other threats. That's the reality. I can't live with constant surveillance." "You're not. You're living with occasional check-ins from people I trust. There's a difference." Sophia wanted to argue, but realized it was pointless. This was Alessandro's world. This was the compromise she had accepted. Occasional security in exchange for being with someone who made her feel alive for the first time in her adult life. 1 month after Sophia made her choice, Bellanotte closed for 2 days for minor renovations. New tables, fresh paint, updated lighting that made the space feel both modern and timeless. When they reopened, the place was packed. Reservations booked solid for weeks. Sophia stood near the hostess station on opening night, watching the controlled chaos of a full dining room. She had staff she trusted, systems that worked, a restaurant that functioned like a well-oiled machine because she had built it that way. Alessandro sat at table 7, his spot, his routine. But now when she brought him water and bread, she sat down across from him for a moment. "Busy night," she said. "You've done well. The place runs better than it ever has. I had good resources to work with. You had talent. Resources just gave you room to use it." Sophia smiled. "Are you complimenting me, Mr. Vitale?" "I'm stating facts, Miss Mitchell." She stood to get back to work. His hand caught hers briefly. a small gesture, one that meant everything. The months continued. Summer turned to fall. Fall to winter. Sofia and Alessandro built something steady in the midst of his chaotic world. It wasn't always easy. There were nights he came to the restaurant tense and withdrawn, dealing with problems she knew better than to ask about. There were days when federal agents parked outside, watching, documenting, building cases that might never go anywhere. But there were also quiet mornings drinking coffee together, late nights after the restaurant closed, cooking experimental dishes in the empty kitchen. Weekends when Alessandro took her to museums and parks, and all the places tourists visited, but most New Yorkers never bothered with. He was teaching her that life could include both danger and joy, that you could acknowledge risk while still choosing connection, that safety wasn't found in isolation, but in building something worth protecting. Sofia was teaching him that vulnerability wasn't weakness, that letting someone see your scars didn't make you less powerful, that the strongest thing he had ever done was admit he needed someone. They grew together, learned together, built a relationship that existed in the spaces between his world and hers, finding middle ground one careful step at a time. On a Friday night, 6 months after Sofia made her choice, Alessandro sat at table 7. She brought his osso buco without asking, set it down carefully. His hand came up to cover hers on the plate. "I love you," he said quietly. Simple, direct, no preamble. Sofia's breath caught. They hadn't said it yet, hadn't put words to what they both felt. Naming it made it real, made it something that could be lost. "I love you too," she whispered. He smiled. A real smile, the kind that transformed his entire face. "Good, because I was getting tired of not saying it. How long have you known?" "Since the night I bought this restaurant. Maybe before." Hard to say exactly when wanting someone becomes loving them. For me, it was the night you told me about your mother, when I saw past everything else to who you really were. Alessandro pulled her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. "Finish your shift. We'll celebrate properly later." Sofia went back to work, but everything felt different now. Lighter, more solid. They had said the words, made the commitment explicit. Whatever came next, they would face it as people who loved each other. The restaurant closed at 11. Sofia finished her closing duties while Alessandro worked in the office. When the last staff member left, they were alone. "Ready to go?" she asked from the office doorway. Alessandro looked up from his laptop. "Actually, I have something for you." He pulled a small box from his desk drawer. Not ring-sized. Something else. Sofia took it and opened it carefully. Inside was a key. "What's this?" "Key to my apartment in Midtown. I want you to have it. You don't have to move in. Not yet. But I want you to have the option. I want you to know you always have a place with me." Sofia stared at the key. Such a small object. Such an enormous gesture. Alessandro giving her access to his private space, his home, the place where he went to be alone. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Sofia closed her fingers around the key. "Thank you. You're welcome." They left Bellinot together, walked out into the Manhattan night. The city moved around them in its endless rhythm. Millions of people living millions of lives. Most of them would never understand the choice Sofia had made, the world she had entered, the risks she accepted daily, but that was okay. Her life wasn't meant to make sense to anyone else. It just had to make sense to her. And standing there with Alessandro's hand in hers, a key to his apartment in her pocket, and 6 months of building something real behind them, it made perfect sense. She had chosen danger over safety, connection over distance, love over fear. And she would choose it again, every single day, the restaurant behind them, the city ahead of them, their future uncertain, but their commitment absolute. Sofia Mitchell and Alessandro Vitale, 2 people who had been invisible for different reasons, who found each other in the chaos, who built something worth protecting in the spaces between his world and hers. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real.